Warning. This show is about the return of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. If you are easily offended by the truth, then you need to keep listening. His return is drawing near.
SmokeHouseStudios.net, The Front Porch Show. A unique blend of current events and what they might mean, humbly seen through the eyes of God's Word, the Bible, in an old-school front porch discussion with occasional guests, your input, and a guiding hand through Christ. Broadcasting from atop the front porch, it's SmokeHouseStudios.net's The Front Porch Show. Now, carefully blending more smoke goodness in each and every soundbite, your host, Smokehouse.
H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis, we the jury find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the third count of the information, unknown male, we the jury find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we the jury find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we the jury find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Amen. Kyle Rittenhouse, not guilty. Not guilty on all 5 accounts. Proven by a jury of his peers that he was acting in self-defense when the death of those that were attacking him occurred. Now, this has started a storm, a fury amongst, of course, the left folks, as we knew that it would, and I'm sure riots will be getting kicked off probably tonight. I know things got a little crazy last night, but nothing too terribly bad that I'm aware of anyway. I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't even looked into it. But welcome aboard, everybody. Thank you for tuning in here. SmokeHouseStudios.net Front Porch Show, November 20th, 2021. Thank you all for being here. Again, I do apologize for not being live with you last week, but it was the wife's birthday, and we had to go out and celebrate her birthday. But I did get the show recorded a day early so that y'all could have it up for listen. But I can promise you we are live tonight. The title of tonight's program is titled Beyond Tragedy. Okay, we've got a bunch that we're going to cover. We've got a whole lot of clips to get through tonight. Looks as though we're going to talk about this bill, the stimulus bill or the Build Back Better bill, whatever you want to call it. It has passed the House. Got some interesting information on it, though, as to how it passed the House. We have got DeSantis in Florida coming out saying a few things against this mandate. And many of you remember, let's see, I guess it was about a year ago. Maybe I'll have to go back and check. But when we were talking about the Durham boat, the one that George Washington took across the Delaware, we got some interesting information on that. Dr. Fauci has said some interesting things. Hillary is back on the air. Biden's gone in for a colonoscopy and for 85 minutes. Vice President Kamala Harris was acting president for 85 minutes. Wow. We're going to be talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse case. We're going to share a little bit from Lauren Boebert. Now they're threatening us with a smallpox outbreak, folks, just like they did COVID. You know, they told us, what is it, about 6 months to a year, and then be expecting a pandemic, and then boom, we have COVID show up. Well, now it looks like we've got smallpox going to be showing up. We're going to cover the latest on the OSHA mandate. There has been another court now that has deemed it unconstitutional for OSHA to force the vaccine. And we're going to be talking about Steve Bannon and Project Veritas. A whole lot to get to, folks. Don't mean to eat up much time, but I started a little bit early this evening. So I want everyone to fill the pews. Beyond tragedy, we're going to look at Jeremiah chapter 17. We've studied this before, but I think we need to go back and look at it again now that more information is on the table. Ghislaine Maxwell, you know, the lady that was the madam to Jeffrey Epstein that was going around and grabbing these children for all the stars and our politicians. And she has been arrested. Her trial begins Monday. No, I'm sorry. Yes, Monday the 29th. Monday after Thanksgiving, okay? So we will keep you covered on that. Jeremiah 17, verse 17, however, says, "Thou art my hope in the day of evil." Now, there's going to be 2 points of view. We have pessimism and we have optimism. This is where we find ourselves today. We have cowardice and we have courage. These are going to be the 2 questions that we've got. Are you pessimistic? Are you optimist? Are you courageous? Or are you a coward? Remember, Revelations tells us that the cowardly and the unbelieving will find their place in the lake of fire. But on the one hand, there's a lack of hope, and there's a faith in God. There's a faith in people and in the future of goodness. I know that we stare down the loaded barrel of this tyranny, of this trial and tribulation that we see where the wicked continue to prosper. And it doesn't matter how much more we try to do good, we seem to continue to glide down this everlasting razor blade that seems to be cutting us in half, if you know what I mean. So on the other hand, there is this confidence in the internal goodness, in the divinity in human beings, and in the ultimate triumph of the right. So the reason why Christians can believe in the ultimate triumph of righteousness is because there is hope in God, and a God who created a good world through the world is now not so good, but God is powerful enough to guide us through this, and with the help of some of His children, finally to destroy the evil that is in this world. It's coming, folks. It's coming. I don't know how much more tribulation we're going to have to endure before it gets here, but it's coming. This is the thought that should grip us in these days. So beyond tragedy, there is triumph, folks. No matter how dark and depressing things may be at a particular moment, they're going to get better. How many times have we read in the Bible a story or a lesson or something in the Bible starts out with, "It came to pass"? It came to pass. Listen to me. That is not just some poetic beginning or poetic entrance into a story. God is letting you know right up front that what you are about to read, the lesson you are about to learn, the parallel that you're going to read in ancient times that you're seeing today, it came to pass. Meaning, literally. It literally came so it could pass. And this is where we are now, folks. We are being refined in the fire. We're being refined. We're being refined in the fire. We've got to grasp that concept. Flames might be getting a little hotter right now, folks, but it's only purifying us if we are solid in our belief in Christ. It's going to get better. They must get better if our creed is true. God is infinite in wisdom, goodness, and love. Share a story with you here. There was a Canadian woman who once said that there's only one thing to do, and that's keep on doing what we think is right, and God will make things come out right in the end. So what we have to do is we have to look for God's help, and we need to take it so that we can take the next step. And then the next step, lending a helping hand to a distressed person, beaten and broken by the wayside, and clearing the Jerusalem/Jericho highway and the highways in our lives today of all of the cutthroats, the robbers, and we can look up and we can trust God. We can trust God for these things. Now, I know you're going to recognize Jeremiah 17, but now as things have progressed, there is a brighter light that shines from this chapter. Verse 1, the sin of Judah is written with a pen of iron with a point of a diamond, and it's graven upon the tablet of their heart and upon the horns of your altars. I've shared this analogy when I've shared this with you. It's written with iron with a diamond tip. This thing is etched in stone, meaning when God tells Jeremiah to write this, there is no Facebook that's going to be able to delete it. There is no Twitter going to be able to delete it. There is no YouTube that's going to be able to censor it. It's etched with a diamond. It's cut out in stone. Erosion cannot even cover up what God is telling Jeremiah to write here. In verse 2, he says, whilst thou children remember their altars and their groves by the green trees upon the high hills. Altars here. The term altar means mishbech. Mishbech in the Hebrew here. And simply it means altar. Other places, we talked about the totem poles, the Asher poles. Whilst their children remember their altars or their Asher poles and their groves by the green trees upon the high hills, their Asher poles. Folks, I'm going to quickly go through this since we've covered it before in past shows. But they're Asher poles. What are those? Those are like the totem poles that Indians build that we're familiar with. Back in the day, these people would build these poles with images engraved in them of their other gods, of their other gods that they worshipped. And I gave the analogy then that when I look back at my childhood, I had the old-fashioned God-rearing grandparents and parents that kept my feet to the flame. And when I look back to my childhood, as it says here, whilst thou children remember their altars, when they look back to their Asher poles, when they look back to their childhood, I can remember God, church, vacation Bible school, and all the things that kids did, church camp, okay? But now the kids that are running around today, when they look back, the only thing they can see are their idols, their Asher poles, their iPhones, their toys, their video games. Because church had began to dwindle, and now the children of today, just like the children here in this story, the children today, when they look back, there's quite a few children today that have no remembrance of church or God. All they see are their Asher poles. Verse 3, O mountain in the field, I will give thee substance and all thy treasures to the spoil, and the high places for sin throughout all thy borders. So, O my mountain in the field, I will give thy substance to, and all thy treasure to the spoil, and thy high places for sin. What Jeremiah is writing here, etching in stone, that no one can wash away, no one can delete or censor, is all of our treasures, everything that we hold dear, our money. Look at the inflation. Look at the Biden administration trying to give illegal aliens $450,000 apiece, while we're sitting here eating bologna, being the ones working, paying the taxes that he's giving away. This is our treasure here. This is what we hold dear. Our rights, our medical rights, our Constitution, our way of life here, our finances, everything is being given to the spoil, given to those who want to destroy us, given to those who want to invade our country, all because of our sin. God told us back in Deuteronomy, if we obey his commandments, everything that we allow our hands to will be blessed. He went through a litany of list of things that would be blessed if we just simply obey his commandments. And then he gives us a list in the latter part of the chapter of the things that will be cursed. And he said everything that our hands touch will be cursed. And the litany list of the curses that he will put on all these things if we don't obey his commandments. So we knew this ahead of time. Deuteronomy was written way before Jeremiah. So Jeremiah here is just stating the fact, and it happened to the children of Israel. Everything that they held dear was given up because they refused to obey God. Verse 4, and thou even thyself shalt disconnect from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for you have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. Now, if that does not echo today that we find ourselves in, nothing will. He is going to disconnect us from our heritage that God gave us. What are we seeing? God gave us a constitution in this nation. God gave us this land of the free, home of the brave. God has given us the heritage that we remember as a child, and many of you remember even back into the 50s, the 40s. It was the greatest blessing a nation could have back in those days. But just like God said, he's going to disconnect us from that. How many of you now can say, man, I don't even recognize my country anymore. It's as though I've been disconnected from what I was raised under. Our heritage, we've been disconnected from it. And he's going to cause us to serve our enemies in a land that we knowest not. What are we doing right now? I mean, with the illegal aliens giving them all this money and free health care, and they don't have to take a vaccine. They don't even have to be tested. They can run into this nation free as a jaybird. And yet, we're paying all these high gas prices and high taxes. They're shutting down our oil and getting oil from OPEC, putting the money in their pockets and charging almost $4 a gallon for gas now. See, this is what's happening. We are serving our enemy now in this land of America that we do not recognize, that we knowest not. Verse 5, thus saith the Lord, cursed is the man that trusteth in man and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departeth from the Lord. Now, verse 5 could preach for the rest of the show. And I'm going to tell you why. We've shared it before. We were prospering very well under Trump. And a lot of us, including myself, I fell into the Trump trap. I mean, I'm still a supporter of Trump, but what I learned in this last year of the Biden administration is the fact I have put too much faith in Trump. And I shared on the past show when we covered this that when people look at today, we're we are a year into Biden, but not technically a full year in his full presidency, but we are a full year away from the election. But the point is that now everybody has lived a year under this tyranny and they want Trump back, and everybody's Trump. The majority of people have not learned their lesson here. And then we were asked, why is the wicked still prospering? Why are we still going deeper and deeper into tyranny, into debt, and losing our country to these illegal aliens? Why is evil and this strong delusion that the left is under, that we're going to cover here in a moment, why is that growing? Why do they have a megaphone from the media and every outlet that you see? Why are they prospering? And we who are trying to repent and do good, call upon the Lord, why are we continually falling? And we're told right here, because we are still, there's a large majority of us, instead of calling out to God, instead of begging Him for repentance and begging Him to heal this land, like He promised us in 2 Chronicles 7:14, if we would do these things. We're still trusting in man too much, folks. We're still trusting in man, and God told us this is a curse. For he shall be like the heath in the desert, and shall not see when good cometh, but shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, and in a salt land, and not inhabited. But here, in verse 7, it says, Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, in whose hope the Lord is. So if we look to God now, and I'm not speaking to the routine listeners. I know y'all get it, man, and I hear messages from y'all time. And Sister Elizabeth, I hadn't forgot about you, girl. I know I told you I'd call you this week, and man, when I do talk to you and tell you what happened this week, you're going to understand. It has literally went crazy at the work QTH this week, man. But I'll get in touch with you. But I'm speaking to the people here who may stumble onto this program for the first time. And what we have to understand is, blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, in whose hope the Lord is. So instead of looking for a Trump or Trump-type figure, folks, it is time to bow down and submit to the Almighty. I mean, we're coming up on some things that we've never seen in any society. I mean, we've got Austria. Austria now is locking back down. Ireland has just fully locked back down. 95% of the people are vaccinated, and they're locking back down even tighter than they did during the actual quote-unquote pandemic. We're seeing a stronger Australia now, completely locked down, building concentration camps, folks. So is New Zealand. Locking back down. Separating, segregating the vaccinated from the unvaccinated. And the unvaccinated, they are the target in all of these places. There is another command that has come down from one who is in charge of the world, because now the nations of the world seem to be marching to the same drum. And I ask again, is the Antichrist on the scene? He just has not been revealed to us. Is he distributing orders that all of these nations are following? And I'm telling you, America is next. Look at Europe. Europe's getting tight again. But America is going to be next. And as we get further in the show, we get to Bill Gates. You're going to be fuming. But blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord. We must trust in the Lord, for he shall be as a tree planted by the waters, that spreadeth out his roots by the river, and shall not see when heat cometh. But her leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought, neither shall cease from yielding the fruit. I've used this analogy as well also. When it comes to the fruit, folks, we can tell a tree by its fruit. Man, if you haven't seen God working in your life right now, you're not looking. You're not even paying attention, because for the past 2 weeks, the gate issue and then what happened at work this week, I mean, God is like hardcore. I mean, he's shining in my life, folks. I would tell you what happened to me this week, but right now, due to legality issues, I just want to wait out of respect And then maybe some couple of more shows I can tell you what's going on. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. This is the fruit that is yielding the good fruit, but it comes from the root, folks. And until you get to the root, you're not going to be able to deal with the fruit. Meaning, if we're going through this life trying to have a fruitful tree, and there's all of these rotten pieces of fruit on it that's taken away from the good fruit we're trying to achieve, and we try to trim away that bad fruit, okay? We're going to be trimming fruit for the rest of our lives. It's not until we deal with the root that we're going to be able to deal with the bad fruit. The root of this tree, God told us here, is He Himself. That He will continue to shield us and keep us watered in drought and keep us yielding, keep this tree of life yielding fruit for us. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Verse 10, the Lord searched the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways and according to his fruit of his doing. So, folks, we're walking down some dark roads here. There's already friends of mine, close personal friends of mine in the medical field, even my sister, that is having to make life-changing decisions over this stupid mandate that's happening to the medical care industry. So you want to talk about stepping off the cliff all at once and having to fully walk in faith? Read verse 10 again. I, the Lord, search the heart and try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings. You may be faced with making these difficult decisions about your job and about a vaccine. Well, guess what God's doing right now? I'll tell you exactly what He's doing. He is searching your heart, and He's trying you. He is trying you to the nth degree. On you a cliff. He have growled and clear through, or He's steering you out a cliff, you kick back and relax because you know God got you. He ain't going to drop you. He's trying your reins, folks. And He's going to give you. He is going to give you according to your ways. So if you're still out there at the bars and you're partying and you're drinking and you're fooling around on your old lady or whatever it is you're doing that you know is against God, and you're faced with having to make a decision of losing your job and taking the vaccine, and you're like, I ain't going to take a shot. Well, you might not take the shot, but God's going to let happen to you in your life by not taking that shot according to your fruit. And if you're not producing good fruit, you're not going to be faring very well. I'm still not telling you to take the shot, but my point is, we're faced with these difficult decisions. And if we expect God to shield us, guide us, and get us through these tough decisions after we make them according to what we know He would want, that's going to cost us our job, even maybe our lives, we better be living right. We better have repented, and we better be not trusting in man, but trusting solely in God, because He is searching our hearts right now, and He's going to give us what we deserve according to our heart. So He will bless us if we obey His commandments. Everything that we lay our hands on will be blessed, folks. Everything. He says we'll be blessed coming in and blessed going out if we obey His commandments. A glorious high throne from the beginning, the high place of our sanctuary. And Jeremiah, O Lord, the hope of Israel, all that forsake Thee shall be ashamed, and they that depart from Thee shall be written in the earth. Because Thou forsaken the Lord, the fountain of the living waters. Now, what did Jeremiah mean? that if we forsake the Lord, or if they forsake the Lord, they're going to be ashamed, and then their name is going to be written in the earth. Our objective here is to have our name written in the Lamb's Book of Life so that we can have life everlasting. Our objective here is that when that book of remembrance is opened, God can find out and see that we have been faithful. And that way, when he opens the book of life, our name will be written there and not blotted out. But here Jeremiah says, if we forsake the Lord, he's going to write our name in the earth. Now, what happens when you write your name in the earth? What happens if you go to the beach in the sand and you go to the water's edge where the sand's just hard and packed and wet, and you can write your name in that sand? It could be, man, you could write it. You could write, the letters could be 10 foot long. You could see it from space. But the first time that wave comes into the beach and rolls back out, it's going to be flat sand again. It's going to wash your name away, folks. You don't want your name written in the land at all. You want it written in the book of life. Okay, I went a little long on that one. We got verse 14 through 8. We've got 4 verses here. I'll wrap it up. Jeremiah's praise for deliverance. This needs to be our prayer right now, folks. Heal me, O Lord, and I shall be healed. Save me, I shall be saved, for thou art my praise. Behold, they say unto me, where is the word of the Lord? Let it come now. I mean, how many of us are out here trying to do what's right? You don't want to take the shot right now. And you're telling your friends, this is why I don't want to take the shot, because I feel it's the mark of the beast, or it could be a prelude, but I don't want any part of it. And they laugh at you. Well, it's not the mark of the beast. Dr. Fauci said it was good. And, well, where is your Lord? When's he coming? Behold, they say unto me, where is the word of the Lord? Let it come now. Jeremiah says in 16, as for me, I have not hastened from being a pastor to follow thee, neither have I desired the woeful day. Thou knowest that which come out of my lips was right before thee. You know, Jeremiah is just living it right because he knows how great yet terrible the day of the Lord is going to be. So he's not wishing necessarily for it, but he knows it's coming, and he's going to live right till it gets here. Be not a terror unto me, thou art my hope in the day of evil. It's interesting that Jeremiah said that to God. Be not a terror unto me, be my hope in the day of evil. See, Jeremiah knows, even as faithful as he is, he stumbles and he falls sometimes. And he knows that on that day of evil, on that day of judgment, he's not going to when it rains on the just and the unjust. And Jeremiah knows this. And all he is saying is, you know, I'm trying to be good. And when you bring this evil, just don't be a terror to me. How many times do we ask God for that? No, I know a lot of times I don't. I just pray for him to judge the wicked and kind of forget about me. And you know, folks, we need to be like Jeremiah. When we pray to bring judgment against the evil, we need to pray and repent that he not be a terror against us. Last verse, we'll go to break, we'll come back and kick this show off. Let them be confounded that persecute me, but let not me be confounded. Let them be dismayed, but let not me be dismayed. Bring upon them the day of evil, and destroy them with double destruction. That's self-explanatory right there. And verse 18 is what we're going to focus on as we continue on with the program tonight, because it's a very important little verse there. So, let them be confounded that persecute me, but let not me be confounded. Let them be dismayed, but let not me be dismayed. We've got to be able to identify some things. We've got to start calling out the evil, folks. We got to start calling it out. If you remember Lauren Boebert, matter of fact, we'll just play her clip for the break just to introduce you to her if you don't know who she is. She is in the House. She's a Republican from Colorado. She is the lady that carries a firearm on her hip everywhere she goes, and she will not take it off because she says she has a Second Amendment. It's awesome. She's starting to call out evil, folks. This is where it starts. We'll be right back after this.
Smokehouse.
To talk with Smokehouse, dial 712-770-3857. That number once again is 712-770-3857. Then dial the access code 252-380, followed by the pound sign, and you will be placed in the queue.
Call in and join the show.
SmokehouseStudios.net. God is among us. The door to the ark is slamming shut.
I'm Lauren Boebert, and I approve this message.
Cut. That's a wrap.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm a newly elected congresswoman from Colorado. Even though I now work in one of the most liberal cities in America, I refuse to give up my rights, especially my Second Amendment rights. I will carry my firearm in D.C. and in Congress. This caused outrage from Democrats and the media. Why? It's our job in Congress to defend your rights, including your Second Amendment, and that's exactly what I'm here to do. In D.C., of all places, we should be encouraged to practice our rights. So forget what you hear in the fake news. Here are the real reasons why I choose to defend myself in our nation's capital. I'm a woman and a mother of 4. I choose to defend my family with all of the force the Constitution provides. D.C. is one of the top 10 most dangerous cities in our country. Homicide rates and violent crimes are skyrocketing here. Being a member of Congress is pretty basic. I don't go to work in a motorcade or armored car. I don't get police escorts everywhere I go. I walk to my office every morning by myself. So as a 5-foot-tall, 100-pound woman, I choose to protect myself legally because I am my best security. One of the challenges of working in D.C. is people here don't understand how we live in real America. The Second Amendment is part of our lives. Gun ownership is cherished, and it makes our little town safer. As a young woman working late nights at a restaurant, I learned real fast how important it is to defend myself. After a violent incident outside my business, I took advantage of Colorado's open carry laws and began to carry at work. My waitresses asked if they could open carry too. And now Shooter's Grill has mandatory firearm training and target practice available for my staff, most of whom are young women. Educated, law-abiding gun owners are the safest people in America to be around. So when anyone comes in to limit the rights and safety of my family, I'll tell them exactly what this mom thinks. I am here to say, hell no, you're not. I have 4 children. I'm 5'0", 100 pounds. Cannot really defend myself with a fist. So all you're going to do is restrict law-abiding citizens like myself. So this is why I choose to defend myself and my family. Not only is it my right, but it's a right I was sent here to protect from Rifle, Colorado. So if you see me in D.C., say hi. You're safe with me.
And that's Lauren Boebert. Now, she took her seat and her position there in January. It's almost been a year since she's been there. Now, we are to expose evil. We are to stand boldly. And it's interesting how she has done that very thing. And she's been a woman true to her word the whole time she's been there. She's been calling out evil. But this week, they have really been hammering on the right-wing party because of this Kyle Rittenhour case. And everyone that has been supporting it they had been trying to destroy and tear down. And one of their colleagues that was a Republican, there was some dirt that was released on that colleague to basically try to tarnish, their reputation. And Lauren Boebert was standing in Congress this week, and listen to her response on that. All you can say is, boom.
Speaker, Democrat policies are so pathetic and have done so poorly that the left has nothing else to do but troll the internet looking for ways to get offended and then try to target members and strip them of their committees. This is a dumb waste of the House's time. But since the Speaker has designated the floor to discuss members' inappropriate actions, shall we? The Jihad Squad member from Minnesota has paid her husband, and not her brother husband, the other one, over $1 million in campaign funds. This member is allowed on the Foreign Affairs Committee while praising terrorists. A Democrat chairwoman incited further violence in the streets outside of a courthouse. And then the cherry on top. My colleague and 3-month presidential candidate from California, who is on the Intelligence Committee, slept with Fang Fang, a Chinese spy. Let me say that again. A member of Congress who receives classified briefings was sleeping with the enemy. This is unacceptable.
And there you have it, folks. I'd like to tell you a little story about a Harper Valley PTA. About the only thing she left out was a little nip of gin. Lauren Boebert standing in front of Congress, calling it out, folks. You heard in her disclaimer there as the break played, she's not a very sizable lady. She's kind of short, and it's hard to protect herself with her own fist. That's why she carries her firearm. But, buddy, I tell you what, she knows how to speak it. Had an affair with Fang Fang. That killed me. Anyway, this is the boldness, folks. This is the boldness that we need to have right now because they are coming for you. They are coming for you. Merrick Garland was up in front of Congress. He is our Attorney General. And a few weeks ago, he was testifying in front of Congress. It was asked, I believe it was Ted Cruz that asked him this, if the parents that have been going to these school board meetings and yelling at the school board because the parents have had enough, they have had enough. Merrick Garland then initiates the domestic terrorist group to start investigating these parents. So Ted Cruz asked the Attorney General in front of Congress, testifying under oath, did you sic the domestic terrorist investigators onto the parents? He said he did not. Later, it came out that he did. He did list these parents as domestic terrorists and set up a little group to look into it. Committed perjury, lied in front of Congress. The Attorney General of the United States hasn't been arrested, still walking around free. And then Kyle Rittenhouse, defending himself. And I really am amazed because I am blown away I could understand the millennials and, the preteens that follow Twitter and watch CNN and all that. You can just bank on them calling all of this racist, and he's a racist, and he's a murderer, and he's a terrorist. That's expected. But when you see people your own age saying and believing the same thing, they obviously did not even look at the trial. They just believed what the mainstream media was telling them. Let me give you a little montage of what we have been hearing during this whole trial from the mainstream media. These people are listening.
Kenosha shooter, Kyle Rittenhouse, he murdered 2 people, by the way.
Rittenhouse is basically what you would have had in a school shooter. He's a 17-year-old kid. He shouldn't have had a gun. He crossed state lines to supposedly protect property. No, he was going out to shoot people.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the armed teenage vigilante.
A 17-year-old vigilante, arguably a domestic terrorist, picked up a rifle, drove to a different state to shoot people.
Kyle Rittenhouse, a guy who's deeply racist, went with weapons to a Black Lives Matter protest looking to get in trouble. He did. He murdered a couple of people.
Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old kid, just running around, shooting and killing protesters.
You see the 17-year-old who was radicalized by Trumpism, took his AR-15 to Kenosha and became a killer.
A white, Trump-supporting, MAGA-loving, Blue Lives Matter social media partisan, 17 years old, picks up a gun, drives from one state to another with the intent to shoot people.
These people.
So on and on it goes. This is all they're being spoon-fed. They haven't watched one single day of the trial because their minds are already made up of what this situation was all about. I focused very intently on the trial, and there was nothing but proof after proof after proof after proof that it was pure 100% self-defense. Then they started hammering the judge. Then they started hammering the jury. Now, the reason I'm bringing all this up, folks, is this bullhorn. This is what we are seeing. We read it just now in Jeremiah, verse 9. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Who can know it? The media knows. The media knows how to be deceitful. They know how to deceive someone's heart. This is what it is. Satan knows the tactics. The heart is deceitful. So they tug on those strings to continue to cause division. And, you know, the deeper that we go into this, it's ultimately clear to me Satan's main tactic here is division. You know, the Bible says a house divided against itself cannot stand. And this wedge of division, however they can do it, whether they do it with racism, whether they do it with terrorism, whether, you know, they have their narrative. And I know we understand this, but this week, tonight I'm going to show you the depths of which it goes. It doesn't matter what the media is pushing, whether, again, it's racism or the vaccine and the unvaxxed, you know, whatever it is they're pushing, it is nothing but pure division. And we are to turn away from that, folks. Turn away from it. I don't care what it is. We have got to start uniting first. We've got to get our heart pure. We need to quit being deceived by the devil. I mean, we are to be wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove. We should have already understood these tactics. Again, I know my listeners do, routine listeners, but the new ones that come to this program all the time, we've got to get that ingrained in us, that it's all about division. You know, we opened the show with the verdict being read. 5 on all 5 counts. Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty by a jury of his peers. After all was said and done, the judge said this case is now officially dismissed with prejudice, meaning that he can never be tried for this crime again. But yet, the Merrick Garland that committed perjury in front of Congress, our Attorney General, is handing this over to the DOJ. And they're going to start looking into this Rittenhouse case to see if Rittenhouse can be charged for murder under federal guidelines. They're not giving up on this poor kid. They want their narrative. They want him guilty so that they can use him as a poster child to start coming after our firearms and to start further dividing this nation and to further continue this boiling of a civil uprising. And if they're unable to do that in the federal platform, they've lost a little narrative, because this case has proven that we do have the right to use deadly force in defense of our life. But you see the evil corruption, the DOJ. Look at all of this trafficking that's going on right now. Our very president, Joe Biden, is 100% involved. His entire administration, 100% involved in human trafficking, by allowing these illegals to cross the border and then busing them under the cover of darkness at night to all of these states is human trafficking. Where is the DOJ on that? See, there has been a reversal. There has been a flip. Opposite. Good has become evil, and evil has become good. Isaiah told us that it would be this way in the last days, and Isaiah said, woe unto those that call good evil and evil for good, that pass light for darkness and darkness for light. Woe unto them. But you see how this is playing out. Why was nothing ever said about, in court proven to be and served time for pedophilia? One of the guys had been having sex with little boys. They were petty crimes along with it. They were felons. What were they even doing with firearms? Why is that not a question? It's not the point. Bill de Blasio. Let me share with you what Bill de Blasio had said. Let's see. Bill de Blasio, the verdict is disgusting and it sends a horrible message to the country. Where is the justice in this? We can't let this go. We need stronger laws to stop violent extremists from within our own nation. Now is the time. And then he says, Anthony Huber and Joseph Rosenbaum are the victims here. Now, these are the felons that he's talking about, praising once again the felons. They're the victims here, folks. Mayor Bill de Blasio, Anthony Huber, and Joseph Rosenbaum are victims, and they should be alive today. The only reason they're not is because a violent, dangerous man chose to take a gun across state lines and start shooting people. To call this a miscarriage of justice is an understatement. Division. Understand the devil's tactic. Now that Kyle Rittenhour has been proven innocent with prejudice, he's a free man. He acted solely in self-defense, which is legal to do in this nation. Now listen to the media's response after the verdict was handed down.
He has the privilege of whiteness. Please understand that if Kyle Rittenhouse was black, today's outcome would have been different.
Had a black kid committed the same crimes that Kyle Rittenhouse did, he would in fact be dead. He would not have been given a presumption of innocence.
There was a lot of talk about if he happened to be black, what would this be? How would this have ended?
And I want to pose the question of what is that result if it is a black person, a black youth with an illegal gun that comes to a rally, a protest, say, and then they feel scared and it ends up in a shooting? Would we have these same results?
Well, we know. So they've got to somehow turn the spotlight back to racism somehow. So now he's a privileged white boy, and had this have been a black man, the black man would have been found guilty. Stirring the pot, stirring the division. stirring the pot, stirring the division. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Do we see it? Do we recognize it? Do we see the tactics here? Jeremiah told us about it. And besides that, why are we even trusting in a media that's been lying to us all this time? Why? Well, Jesse Waters actually got it right. Surprisingly, but he did.
Lawyers can be. Oh, these guys, when they're not doctoring evidence against Donald Trump, they're embezzling money and shaking down people like Avenatti. And remember those nitwits with Mueller? Just destroyed their iPhones after that witch hunt. I thought these people were supposed to be independent actors. They're just like the rest of us. They're just a bunch of really dirty, rotten scoundrels. These are rogue prosecutors. They are rogue, runaway prosecutors. And this is great, because now we can see how dastardly they are. And if you didn't have cameras, you get the press come out and lie about what would happen in the courtroom. It's like right now, if they didn't have a window here, the press would say it's raining. And then they open up the window, no rain, press still tells me it's raining. That's why the country doesn't trust the press anymore, because we can see. We have the internet now. We have full visibility, cameras in the courtroom. You can see the actual documents, the FBI IG reports. You see, it's a great, great time to be alive in this country, and we are just being lied to in our faces. And it's sick the way the press is also trashing this judge. Mm-hmm. They don't like this judge because he's supposed to be impartial. The left hates impartiality. They want activists in robes. That's why every person they appoint to the high court is a total left-winger. None of the liberal justices ever cross over to side with the conservatives. It's always the conservative justices crossing over because they have some semblance of independence. No. They don't like this guy, even though this judge appointed by a Democrat and ran for election like a bunch of times. The people.
So nonetheless, go after everybody. They didn't get what they want, so now they're discrediting everybody to continue to cause division. Okay, one more on this, and then we're going to move on to a somewhat interesting subject here.
To hear what you have to say. I think it's absolutely mind-blowing that anyone's standing up for a pedophile. Now, that being said, I believe in due process. I believe in, you know what I think is so interesting about the pedophile Rittenhouse situation? I said that. That was a weird approach. But I think it was weird that man was walking free in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is a conversation. I'm definitely...
He molested 5 boys.
I think it was more than that.
Well, that we know of. I think he was charged.
And it was aggressive.
Yeah, this was a violent pedophile.
He served time.
But I think there's a conversation there, and I haven't had the conversation yet because there's some times where you have to read the room. Like it might just be not the right time. But look at that. Why was that individual even walking free?
Yeah, I
would like to speak to is the survivors of his crimes to see how they're feeling today. If they're conflicted with everything that happened. I don't believe in vigilante justice, but why was this dangerous child, pedophile, predator, aggressive? I mean, his crimes were aggressive.
They were young, so maybe they're still too young to speak out.
And they were also boys, too.
Yeah.
They were boys.
Joseph Rosenbaum is a homosexual satanic pedophile that died, like Tucker said. That was the most base thing I ever heard, where he goes, he died the way he lived, trying to unwarrantedly touch a minor.
That's an interesting way to put it, that Tucker had said the other night. That he was a pedophile, and he died trying to touch a minor, because Kyle, of course, at the time was 17. What does the Bible... What did Christ tell Peter when they came to arrest Christ? And Peter took his sword and cut Malchus's ear off, and Christ reached down and put the ear back on the Roman soldier's head. And he turned to Peter and he said, if you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword. And how interesting it was that Joseph Rosenbaum was a pedophile touching kids and died trying to touch a minor. Something to think about, folks. Something to think about. You want to live right? You better live right, because again, I can't really tell you yet what happened to me this week, but it's a huge sign that God is distributing out judgment pretty quickly now. And that was an interesting take that I just wanted to share. Okay. We have shared Project Veritas, James O'Keefe. We have shared him on the program quite a bit. He is the gentleman with the news organization that has reporters secretly wired and pretending to be, someone they're not, so they can infiltrate these news outlets and find all of this undercover information so that he can release the truth. He is a independent media personality, okay? He's not affiliated with any of the alphabet channels. He's on his own, like I am, doing his thing, and he has contacts where he can get people like into CNN, and he can get them into Pfizer, and he gets the whistleblowers, and he gets them on camera. We've shared several times these whistleblowers. Remember the guy that said they're going to start having these drones that can shoot the vaccine into us, shooting us with darts? That guy from Pfizer. And then he had the lady that was working under the governor, or the one that's running for governor there in Pennsylvania. He's running for re-election, and she was saying, yeah, right now he's not going to mandate the vaccine, but after the election, when he wins, then he's going to mandate it. And then he's going to blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. But he's not going to do it until after he's elected. This Project Veritas, this James O'Keefe. Okay. I haven't covered this because I wanted to see how it was going to play out. But what has happened is, I forget the news organization that originally got this, but a diary was stolen from Joe Biden's daughter. And in the diary, it states that Joe Biden was fooling around with her when she was a little girl. So this news agency got it, and somehow or another, where they got a copy of it, of the pages of this diary, okay? A year ago, folks. A year ago. And here recently, the copy of that diary got sent to James O'Keefe with Project Veritas. And when he got it, he could not verify it. He could not verify if it was really the diary of Joe Biden's daughter. As of right now, it's an alleged diary from Joe Biden's daughter. So, since he could not verify it, he did not publish it. He did not say one word about it. He handed it over to the police. He hands it over to the authorities, and he says, hey, I got this, and this is supposedly what it's supposed to be. It's already been out for a year. And then I can't verify it here. I want to give it to you, and I'm not going to print anything about it. Now, that's what a real journalist does. They do the research, and if they cannot verify something, they don't print it. They don't talk about it. Now, unlike the mainstream media today that just takes anything that's given to them and runs with it, whether it's truth or not. But James O'Keefe did everything, textbook definition of what you were to do when you're a true journalist. That has caused the FBI to be sent to James O'Keefe and raid his places and gather all his computers, all of his phones, and they came after James O'Keefe due to this diary. Like I said, I wanted to see how this was going to play out before I talked about it. But now, listen to how this has progressed and what this is meaning for independent reporters like myself, James O'Keefe, and others. Listen to what your government, under the First Amendment, we have the right to freedom of press. You don't have to have any degree. You don't have to have any certification. If you want to tell a story of something that's going on, you have the right, the freedom of speech, and the freedom of the press to go and investigate that for yourself. And then you can stand out on a street corner with a megaphone and share the information that you've got. And you're considered media under the Constitution in a discussion. But listen to what the government now is trying to do. Now that they have raided Project Veritas, quote unquote, because he stole this diary.
The Department of Justice says Project Veritas is not engaged in journalism. Now, let's read this again. The Department of Justice says Project Veritas is not engaged in journalism within any traditional or accepted definition of that word. So to the extent there is a qualified privilege for journalists, it wouldn't qualify. So right now they're saying, well, according to the definition, you're not a journalist. And the digital soldiers aren't journalists. Citizen journalists aren't journalists. Anyone who is reporting on anything is not a journalist. The only journalists are the fake news. That's really what they're saying right now. So they're building the case, letting everyone know that the fake news are the only journalists allowed. That's not what the Constitution says. Remember, they keep changing definitions to suit what they need, just like with vaccinations, just like with the vaccine. They keep changing the definition until they get what they want. The same thing's happening now. Let me continue. The DOJ also says Project Veritas' contention that the FBI leaked some of its documents to the New York Times after seizing them from O'Keefe phone is pure speculation with absolutely no evidence. The Times has said it obtained the documents before the FBI raid. So where did they get it from? If they got it beforehand, who was the source? You notice how they don't answer that question. So why are they pushing this narrative? Think about the digital soldiers. Think about the citizen journalists who are countering the fake news. So are they trying to make a case to shut down digital soldiers, citizen journalists who counter their narrative? Now, do you think this is going to work? No. Because look at the First Amendment. There's no definition that says, oh, you're a certified journalist. Anybody can report on the news. When this doesn't work, what will they do next? Well, let's go back in time a little bit. They tried labels on social media sites. Did that work? No, that failed. They tried fact checkers. Did that work? No, that failed. They tried censorship, but patriots just moved to new platforms. And guess what? The people followed because they wanted to hear the truth. Now they're making the case that Project Veritas is not engaged in journalism with any traditional or accepted definition of that word. So they're trying to tell everyone Project Veritas is not a journalist. It's not a journalist organization, which then goes into the digital soldier to the citizen journalist, alternative media. When all of this fails, because at each stage it is failing, what's their next step? A communication blackout.
A communication blackout. Now, I have to agree with Dave here with X22. It probably will fail because the First Amendment on press and press activity is clear. There's no discretions there. It's freedom of speech. I mean, you got them on the freedom of speech, plus you got them on the freedom of the press. So there's two counts there. Even if they slam, okay, you're not a true press person, well, then you still have freedom of speech. You can say it anyway. And if they try to say, well, you can't say that because you don't have freedom of speech, well, you got freedom of the press. See, I mean, they're not going to probably be able to spin this to shut down Project Veritas under the grounds of them not being considered press. But the point here is, folks, the devil is coming after. It's the burning of the books, just like they did in Germany. It's the burning of truth. It's the burning of history. It's only allowing this satanic agenda be the only thing spoken and be the only thing heard. And we can see that it's working. We can see it in the Rittenhouse trial. It's working because you're divided right down the middle on the Rittenhouse deal. Right down the middle. You got 50% of the people thinking he's a terrorist and he needs to spend his life in jail, and you got the other half of the country praising our Constitution that he was justified in doing what he has done. And the globalist beast that is rising right now wants it all wiped out. They want all independent media, and they're using this Project Veritas. I mean, we know they went after Alex Jones a couple of years ago and got him thrown off of every platform, but yet he's still on his own server doing his own thing. And now they're going after Project Veritas, which is would be considered an independent media source, just like we are. So they're coming. If they can swing this with Project, if they get away with this with Project Veritas, they're coming after all of us to turn us off. They're gonna shut the shows down, and all we're going to be able to hear is what the media tells us. That's it. So this is why this is very important. We need to be following this. You need to be following and supporting Project Veritas because he has, man, he's been on top of it. All right, Steve Bannon. We know Steve Bannon was working with the Trump administration. Steve Bannon now runs his radio show, another independent media platform I'm sure they're trying to shut down because now they have subpoenaed him. And he has refused to show up, but then he turned himself in because now they're charging him with a crime, a contempt of Congress. Now, how many other Democrats can do that and get away with it? But no. Now that they're coming after the Republicans and the Democrats have the power in D.C. now they're going to charge him. And I think he's the first person to be charged with this since 1982, 1983, something like that. So he turns himself in Monday. And listen to what he says. And this is important. And I'll tell you why when you hear what he says.
I'm telling you right now, this is going to be the misdemeanor from hell for Merrick Garland, Nancy Pelosi, and Joe Biden. Joe Biden ordered Merrick Garland to prosecute me from the White House lawn when he got off Marine One. And we're going to go on the offense. We're tired of playing defense. We're going to go on the offense on this and stand by. By the way, you should understand Nancy Pelosi is taking on Donald Trump and Steve Bannon. She ought to ask Hillary Clinton how that turned out from them, okay? We're going on the offense.
Okay, so he's going on the offense. How exactly is he going to be able to do that? Well, if they actually take this to the congressional trial, as they like to do, then there comes a part of disclosure where then Steve Bannon can introduce all kinds of evidence to defend himself with. You see where this is going, folks? Now all kinds of evidence against them can be legally put in the faces of the American people. And so, were the deep stater Democrats, were they considering this? Or were they just trying to get a leg up, saying, oh, yeah, he's guilty, we got him now, just so they can, push that narrative, not really thinking that, oh, wait a minute, as we progress with this, now he gets disclosure and he can start dumping some hurtful information about us, What's going to happen here? What's going to happen here? Okay, the reason that I bring this up, and let me take you back. If you haven't heard this yet, let me take you back. Because McCarthy said something on the congressional floor this week that I didn't know. LT, he shared it, so I got it from LT. Thank you, LT. But when Trump, during his presidential campaign, he had a rally that he did in Wildwood, Florida. So at this rally, before the rally, I'd say about a month before the rally, that iconic painting that was painted of George Washington in the boat crossing the Delaware with the people that were in the boat, that iconic picture, you know, the one I'm talking about. There was a question that was asked, what is the name of the boat? And this was about a month before his rally in Wildwood, New Jersey. And so everybody started researching, and the name of that boat was the Durham boat. And so everybody's like, okay, well, that's odd. That's a Durham boat. So what does that mean? Well, a month goes by, we don't really hear anything. And I think it was Mike Pompeo posted that same picture of that iconic boat with Washington in it. And he told us to listen close to Trump's speech at Wildwood, New Jersey that night. He posted that like 3 hours before the rally. So Trump comes out in Wildwood, New Jersey, and he's out there doing what Trump does. And he'll read off the teleprompter for a little bit, then he'll kind of speak to the crowd from the heart in his own words. You know how Trump does. And then right in the middle of his rally, he just kind of stops. And he looks around and he says, Wildwood, New Jersey. Man, this is a historic spot. He said there was a major battle that was fought here. And he said there's even a plaque down by the ocean that tells a brief history of the battle that was fought here. Y'all need to check it out. It's interesting. And then Trump goes back into character, continues on with his rally, and he keeps trumping the way Trump always does, finishes the rally, and he goes home. But what stood out in that entire rally was that center portion where Trump told us that we needed to go and research that battle that was fought right there in Wildwood, New Jersey. And what it was the Battle of Turtle Gut. There was a spy that George Washington had put on his brigade that was actually the first, spy brigade. And it was George Washington's best friend that he grew up with. And this man's name was Benjamin Talmadge. And Benjamin Talmadge, for 5 years, had been spying on the British. And interestingly enough, his alias that he was using while he was a spy against the British was John Bolton. John Bolton. We know who John Bolton is today, but anyway, he used the alias John Bolton. So John Bolton, spying on the British for 5 years, set up this battle at Turtle Gut. Washington and his troops snuck up the coast up into Wildwood, New Jersey as the battle ensued. The British was chasing one of our ships, firing and blowing our ship to smithereens. The whole crew and everybody on board was trying to salvage everything that they could. And they didn't make it. That boat sank. Do y'all want to know what the name of that boat was that sank in the Battle of Turtle Gut? The ship that sank was called the Nancy. So in this one deal, Trump told us that we needed to research that because basically what we found out was John Bolton was a spy. Nancy got sunk with everybody on board with her. And it was the Durham boat. that led that sneak attack. So what do we have today? Now we have John Durham, the special prosecutor now, that's starting to drop indictments, and he's got the Russiagate indictments, criminal indictments now laid out for all those that were involved. More indictments coming. Radcliffe was on the news the other day with Maria Bartiromo, and she just blatantly asked him, are there any more indictments coming? And Radcliffe said, I know for a fact I gave him at least 1,000, and I know he has more than that, so yes, I know 1,000 more are coming. So John Durham sounds like he's going to be a sneak attack, doesn't he? Nancy Pelosi is talking about retiring now that these criminal indictments are coming. And it looks like Adam Schiff is on deck to be indicted here pretty soon. So be watching the news for it. But anyway, getting back to this, I found it interesting that McCarthy came out on the House floor and he spoke about this Durham boat painting. Now, I did not know this, but it was a German immigrant that painted this. He had come to America years ago and lived here for 10 years and was so enamored by the patriotism and the love and the faith that this country had that he painted this painting of the Durham boat with George Washington and the guys in it so that he could take that image back to Germany, take that heart back to his own country when he left to try to rally up the patriotism for his country. And it's very interesting what we're seeing now happen with Durham dropping indictments. Ghislaine Maxwell fixing to start her trial on the 29th. Kyle Rittenhouse now found innocent. And we have got, when I get to you a little later about the vaccine and all that's coming out about this, it's interesting that McCarthy stood on the House floor this week and spoke about this Durham vote. And listen to what he said.
That America's more than a country, that we're an idea. An idea not of more bureaucracy, but of more freedom. And his talent was art, so he thought, I'll paint this painting to inspire my country to have a revolution based upon the freedoms of American democracy. He gets it historically incorrect. If you look at the painting, it doesn't look like the Delaware, it looks like the Rhine, but he's German. You give him a break, right? He puts Washington in a rowboat. Historians will tell you he probably crossed in a Durham boat. He puts 13 people in the rowboat. Why? 13 colonies. He only shows you 12 faces. If you ever look at the painting, and please come to the office, you could bring your constituents. I don't have to be there. But he has Washington in this ceremonial uniform, standing up in a rowboat in the middle of winter with his hand on his chest. You look at our founding father, and you would say that man is bigger in life. He's so stoic. I bet he's never lost a battle. But you know what history tells us? At that moment in time, Washington had only been a loser. He'd never won a fight. But if you Google this painting to see if I'm right, and you got your phones, you're welcome to do it. I don't want you to look at Washington. I want you to look at who's in the boat. The second person's wearing a beret. He's Scottish. The person in the green directly across from him, rowing in the exact same cadence as African American. You come down the boat, in the middle is this person in the red. They look like they're the strongest. It's a woman. And in the very back is a Native American. Now, Mr. Speaker, I cannot tell you if that diversity was in the boat that night, but to this young immigrant who had lived in America, that's who he believed would be in the boat. Now, the second person to the last was a rancher, a farmer. I don't know if he was related to Russell Johnson or not, with the same occupation. And he has his hand across his face. You see, it's the hand of the 13th person nobody sees. But what this artist was saying, here we are, not a country, but an idea. Having lost every battle before us, but willing to risk everything on our holiest of nights for the idea of freedom. Here's a hand. Would you get in and join us? I wish we hung that portrait in here. I wish we would look at that portrait. That when we brought bills to the floor, that we were all rowing together. Because I will tell you, the challenge Washington faced that night, our two biggest challenges for the future are the debt and China. And this bill makes us a loser on both. Mr. Speaker, it spends more money than we spent for the entire World War II. It sends our jobs to China. It does nothing to stand up to them. But I know this. It's not too late. It might be late into the night. Mr. Speaker, members on your side of the aisle, they got staff. They could get a new plane to Puerto Rico.
So the point here...
This is too important.
Yeah, the point here is, why did he bring up that story about that painting, about the Durham boat, at this time? Timing. Now, he was speaking in regards to this infrastructure bill, this umpteen $1 trillion infrastructure bill that they're going to rob us again. They're going to steal from us. It's not going for the infrastructure. It's going to go to their cronies and back into their pockets like it always does. And our roads are going to continue to degrade. And they're going to just repair enough to make it look like that, yeah, they're doing a little something. We know how the game is played. Well, it's interesting that he shared that about the Durham boat, because the bill was voted on the other day, and it has passed the House, and now it's going to the Senate. And there's some interesting information about this bill on how it passed. And on the fringe is going to share with you, it's actually some good news. Even though it's passed the House, there's still some good news in this.
So Democrats cheer on the House floor after passing Pelosi's multi-trillion-dollar massive Build Back Better, Broke Back Better, Broke Back Mountain 666, whatever, social spending bill. So, yeah, they cheered. Now, one thing that's really neat to point out, and I'm going to say I'm impressed. I'm actually impressed. Not one Republican voted for this. Cool. All right. That's cool. We don't have to take care of any of you. I don't have to take any of you out in the coming election. That's good, so far anyway. The other cool thing, one Democrat actually went against the Democrats. Yeah. So this was not only partisan, but they didn't even have their whole side on board. Looks a little bad for them, doesn't it? So, yeah, of course, Pelosi is thrilled to pieces. House passes Biden's horrible Build Back Better, Broke Back Better bill, but once one of the Democrats joined the Republicans. So again, that was kind of what I was just pointing out to you.
So no Republicans voted for it, and one Democrat actually voted against it. So that's a good sign, folks. That's a good sign, because it looks like it may not go well in the Senate. We'll just have to wait and see, but at least there is a breath of hope. But I just found it interesting that basically, I don't know, why did he talk about that painting of the Durham boat in his speech about, let's do this the right way? The timing of it, I guess, was Steve Bannon fixing to go into disclosure to pull out all the evidence. Durham now dropping the indictments, the things we've been talking about a year ago that we thought would happen while Trump was in office. That's not. That now we're actually starting to see happen now that Trump's gone. Okay. Just kind of interesting. And thank you, Sister Jamie, man. I appreciate this because the timing of this is perfect. Perfect. Because we're fixing to go into Fauci and Bill Gates and the latest new pandemic that's coming. Now, how many times have you heard me tell you that Bill Gates, for umpteen years, he designs a computer and then he creates a virus on that computer, and you have to go out and you have to purchase antivirus on your computer to keep your computer running. And what happens as time goes by? The viruses get worse. You have to buy more virus protection. This has been going on. This cycle of rinse, lather, and repeat's been going on for years. And subconsciously, we have grasped the concept that when there is a virus, we need to go get the antivirus. And over 20 plus years of just cramming that down our throat, then they bring out a real pandemic. And now you see why everybody is running like a chicken with his head cut off to go get a vaccine, right? You've been conditioned to do this. You've been brainwashed to do this. Well, Bill Gates is at it again. But first, let me share with you what Fauci said in an interview with Ted Koppel this week. He was astounded. Just listen.
Well, one of the things that to me was most difficult to accept is that we put together a good plan for how we were going to try and dampen down the spread of infection early on, thinking that that was accepted by everybody. And then the next day, the president saying, free Michigan, free Virginia. I didn't quite understand what the purpose of that was, except to put this misplaced perception about people's individual right to make a decision that supersedes the societal safety. That, to me, is one of the things that I think went awry in all of this.
Did you ever raise that with President Trump?
You know, I didn't have the opportunity to raise it. I was sort of like shocked, and then I didn't speak to him for some time after that. But it was at that point that I realized that I would have to just get out there myself and say things that clearly were going to be contradictory. I'm not totally sure what the president was referring to. That it was much worse than we're saying it was, that it's not going to go away tomorrow. It's not going to disappear like magic.
Because, you know, this virus is...
So Fauci was just astonished. He was amazed that the president would put our rights before he would the safety of the American people on a disease that had a 98% survival rate with a 1% death rate. He was so amazed that our rights would come first before a society's health. Well, Fauci, first of all, it's the government's responsibility. The whole reason that we have elected officials is basically to do our bidding for us. What the American people want, our elected officials are to do. And their first main objective, matter of fact, they have to take an oath to uphold the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. Their first role is to protect everyone's individual right. That's it. That's it. Protect our rights, keep check on the other branches, keep check on the states, keep check on the federal, keep check. Keep check on our rights, and then make sure our country runs like we want it ran. That is it. And then you come out, and under a pandemic, the Constitution was written during a pandemic. Don't you think if they would have wanted a provision for a pandemic, they would have put it in there then when they wrote it? So they're trying, we see them spinning the narrative on the pandemic, and we know they use it when they need it, okay? When they want to riot, there is no pandemic. Everybody can be out there shoulder to shoulder rioting, but when they want to control an election, well, everybody's got to stay home and mail in your ballots. You see, they turn it on and off. And finally, the American people now are waking up to this. And now the American people aren't doing anything. As a matter of fact, these mandates and all of that are being shut down. And so there is a bad word in this. I'm going to try to mute it when it comes. So bear with me. If I can't, don't hate me. But I mean, this guy's mad. People are getting mad. Okay, they can't. The anger is boiling. But mandates now are being shut down. This is the latest.
All right. The Biden administration announced today that it's suspending the implementation and enforcement of its unconstitutional vaccine mandate for private sector employers, pending the outcome of litigation by the Daily Wire and others. This is huge news for the 80-plus million American workers currently being asked to choose between their livelihoods and their bodily autonomy. It's huge news, too, here at the Daily Wire. We were the first in the nation to file suit against the administration for this tyrannical overreach. And just this week, all of the cases filed around the country were consolidated into our court, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. That puts the Daily Wire at the forefront of the fight against Joe Biden's assault on our businesses, our bodies, and our private health decisions. But here's the thing. This victory won't mean anything to American workers unless businesses nationwide also stop enforcing and implementing the mandate. If you run a business and you've spent the last few weeks preparing to go along with the Biden plan, I get it. The government has brought enormous pressure to bear, and the fines that they're threatening for noncompliance are staggering. They could break any company. But here's the thing. Unless you're a government contractor or subject to the healthcare worker vax requirement or some other local or state policy, none of that is actually in play at the moment. Until the Sixth Circuit or the Supreme Court rules otherwise, the OSHA mandate is now off. No vaccine requirement, no testing requirement, no masks, no fines, nothing. You don't have to do anything. So don't do the dirty work for the government. Make them have to defend this unconstitutional bullshit in court before you give in. Now, I get that not every company is in a position to fight this the way that the Daily Wire is fighting it. That's fine. You don't have to. Just don't surrender while the fight is still on. Respect the private health decisions of your employees. Leave the whole fight the government bit to us and to the other litigants. And if you work for a company that's forcing this nonsense on you in the name of complying with the OSHA mandate, well, that's no longer true. The mandate is no longer being actively implemented by the government. So if you're being discriminated against on the basis of your vaccination status, that's your boss, not Uncle Sam. Don't let them hide behind the vaccine mandate. Unless we lose in court, none of us has to comply. And we're not going to lose. We're going to kick the government's ass. Because the Constitution doesn't give the government the power to force private companies to declare that American workers are themselves a threat to workplace safety. And even if it did, Congress certainly didn't delegate that power to the unelected bureaucrats over at OSHA. And even if they did, OSHA bypassed the legally required administrative procedures necessary to implement such a policy in the name of the COVID emergency. And there is no COVID emergency. We have a vaccine now, which is effective at mitigating the threat of hospitalization and death for the vaccinated. And virtually every American who wants that vaccine already has it. And with new therapeutics that are coming online, even the unvaccinated are at a lower and lower risk from COVID. So the government has absolutely no legal or constitutional right to attack our freedoms in this way.
Amen. I tried to catch it. I don't know how well it turned out. But anyway, we get the idea. So things are rolling now in our favor. And again, I want to thank Sister Jamie for sending me this. There's something that we're not going to hear about on the state-funded media. A team of over 1,000 lawyers and over 10,000 medical experts, led by Dr. Rainier Fulmich, have begun legal proceedings over the CDC, the World Health Organization, the Davos Group for crimes against humanity. Nuremberg 2021. So now they're going after them under the Nuremberg Code. Now, with all of that being said, and thank you, Jamie, for that. That added to what I'm about to share here. LT had an interesting little section where They have found, folks, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but they have found in a refrigerator in Philadelphia vials of smallpox. Nobody knew they were there. They just found them. They're putting that narrative out there now. Smallpox has a 30 to 40% death rate. Not a 1% death rate, a 30 to 40% death rate. Look at what happened to the Indians when the white man came over to America. They doused blankets with the smallpox virus and handed the blankets out to the Indians. So Bible says what's been done will be done again, and what's happened will happen again. There's nothing new under the sun. But it's interesting, they just happened to find these vials in the freezer in Philadelphia, and they didn't even know they were there, when the only place that is allowed to have smallpox virus for research is the CDC in Atlanta and a lab in Russia. And now they just, they found them in a refrigerator in Philadelphia. They're setting the narrative for you, folks. Listen to what LT had to say.
Listening to the Health Ranger report. I put it up there. You see the November 18th report, the smallpox biowar. He had some good news, and he said, it's strange because we have also some strange what would be bad news. So I put it in the description box below for you to hear it, and I'm going to explain after I play this. Bill Gates warns of bioterrorist smallpox pandemic.
And so I'm hoping in 5 years I can write a book called, we are ready for the next pandemic. But it'll take tens of billions in R&D that the U.S. and the U.K. will be part of that. It'll take probably about $1 billion a year for a pandemic task force at the WHO level, which is doing the surveillance and actually doing what I call germ games, where you practice. You say, okay, what if a bioterrorist brought smallpox to 10 airports? How would the world respond to that? That there's naturally caused epidemics and bioterrorism caused epidemics that could even be way worse than what we experience today. And yet the advances in medical science should give us tools that, we could do dramatically better. So you'd think this would be a priority. The next year will be where those allocations have to get made, including this global pandemic task force.
So interesting, right? Whenever this guy speaks, you probably want to listen. This guy is a masked man, or if he's CGI on somebody's head through some television screen, you never know who these folks really are, right? They could be deep fakes, but still, they put the face of Gates on it. And a lot of folks think that, they think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread and listen to him because he's on the television screen. And so if he's talking about smallpox, why would they want to project what they're going to do? It's like he already knows the future. He's done it before. Smallpox is not a joke. Listening to Health Ranger, I was thinking about it before he even mentioned it. I thought, what a great cover-up for all of those that have taken the jab. You got myocarditis, all these health problems. People are dropping like flies. The media's covering for them. Well, they can't cover for much more, but I tell you what, you get a smallpox outbreak, and all of a sudden the deaths are covered up, and they will never find out that it came from the actual vaccine because smallpox is taking folks out too. Yeah, and he mentioned 30-40% of the earth could be taken out by that with Health Ranger. And the second reason they would want to unleash smallpox would be to stop the midterm elections because they're losing so bad. I thought that was a brilliant remark. Yahoo News even says FBI is investigating vials labeled smallpox found in a lab near Philadelphia. Isn't that something? November 16th. So they're already putting it out in the mainstream media to give you just kind of an idea. And how would that play out, folks? They could say, look, man, we showed something was happening, and next thing you know, they either, fake it, another false flag of smallpox, everybody gets scared, and they run out and take more jabs for more stuff, or they actually throw the real deal out there and say, yeah, look what we found. Oh, no, somebody took it. They found them in Philly, and they jumped on airplanes and flew around the earth, and now we've got smallpox everywhere. Now, I don't mean to scare everybody. I don't like doing that, but it's important that this stuff is pointed out because once they share it, we've learned, they share the stuff on television, on the news, we have to hope and pray that God Almighty will protect us through all of this.
setting the narrative. They see that things are going awry here. Things aren't working quite the way that they had planned with their little pandemic. And so now they're fixing to bring out the big guns on us, and they're telling us ahead of time like they did before. So, will there be another smallpox outbreak? A smallpox outbreak? Because they're losing the grip on the people. Well, it's like I said earlier, it's very interesting how Austria, Australia, Ireland, New Zealand are all closing back down again. Closing back down again in a stricter lockdown than was under COVID. Well, we've got to... And like he was saying, could this be just propaganda placed out there so we'd get it in the back of our minds so that once this vaccine, the third and the fourth shot these people are going to have to take, start killing people, they have a narrative to cover why they're dying? It's because of smallpox. It's not because of the vaccine. Could this all just be a show to cover their rear end on the vaccine? I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know what to tell you, folks, other than we're the watchmen. We're here telling you that these things are happening. And it would make sense to me because DeSantis, Governor DeSantis in Florida, came out this week and just hammered the Biden administration and said basically, no, we are not going to do what you have to say.
So, first of all, this idea that somehow conservatism is about like local school boards. It's the United States of America, not the United School Boards or County Commissions of America. So the states are the primary vehicles to protect people's freedoms, their health, their safety, their welfare in our constitutional system. What Biden is doing is not constitutional. There has never been a federal vaccine mandate imposed on the general public. I hear people talk about, they do things in the military. Yeah, when I was in the military, they used to give me all kind of stuff. Honestly, I wish I would have thought a little bit, but whatever it was. But that's much different than regulating the military and then imposing it on civilians in society. It's never been done before. They don't have the power to do it. There's no federal police power. States have the federal police power. So that's from a constitutional perspective, it is worlds apart. Now, some people say, hey, these local governments wanted to lock down businesses. They wanted to force mandates. They wanted to keep the kids locked out of school. Yeah, you're damn right I overruled them on that because they were wrong. And the fact of the matter is, you don't have the right to do wrong. And if I had not stepped in last year and made sure that these local governments couldn't lock you down, couldn't mandate, we wouldn't let them fine. We had kids in school last year because of me, not because of them. And that's just the bottom line. And so people can say, is it the job of somebody that's elected to look out for the liberties of everyone in the state? Or do you just say, hey, if someone's violating your freedom, we shouldn't do anything? The fact of the matter is, if we would have let them lock the kids out of school last year, we would have paid the piper on that for years and years in this state. If we had let them lock down businesses and restrict and do all that, we would have one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. So we had to stand up for people's liberties, their livelihoods, their right to work, people's right to own a business, and it was the right thing to do. But what Biden is doing, he does not have he even admitted he doesn't have the authority to do it. Psaki admitted that they don't have the authority to do it. And in fact, even 6 months ago, they were all saying, of course you never mandate. Of course you never mandate. And so the question is, do we actually have a constitution that constrains people like Biden, or is it just when he loses patience, he can do whatever the hell he wants to? No, I'll take the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man. Oh, you got to love DeSantis. You've got so many people like leaving New York, leaving everywhere to go to Florida because they want a piece of that freedom. So as you can see, Governor Lee now here in Tennessee, Governor Lee has now signed legislation into law stating that they can't mandate here. The only thing that strikes me odd, like I said at the beginning, and my sister, she's dealing with this vaccine because she's in the healthcare industry. They're forcing her to take it. Here in Tennessee, the bill pretty much covers everybody from having to take the vaccine except for the healthcare industry. And that I don't quite understand. But we can see everyone now is fighting back against this. You ought to go and look right now at the latest COVID reports throughout the whole United States, and you will see that the majority of the red states have a very low COVID rate, but yet the blue states that are still hammering their people, man, their COVID's going up because probably you got more people getting vaccinated up there than you do in the red states. So, hey, real quick, let me say hi to a good friend of mine I grew up with when I was a kid. Sister Mickey, she's tuning in for a little bit tonight. I got to tell you a funny story about her. Right about the time we first became friends on Facebook, I've got another friend also by the name of Mickey out in Kansas. Hello, Mickey. I know you're listening too. And I got the two Mickeys crossed up. I was in a hurry wanting to send the Kansas Mickey a message, and accidentally pulled up, my friend here Mickey's message and got to type in the message, and it was a pretty lengthy one, and sent it. I went back and checked the message there a little bit later, and she was like, what is this? Had no idea what it was about, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry. That was the wrong Mickey. Anyway, I thought that was funny. So, hello, thank you for tuning in. So you can see, folks, we have got a lot of things happening for the good. Now it kind of lends credibility to the fact that McCarthy came out on the House floor and talked about the Durham vote, okay? And what Trump said in his rally up there in, Wildwood, New Jersey. Slipped my mind. So could there be? I mean, Steve Bannon's fixing to go in front of Congress. We got Ghislaine Maxwell fixing to hit the trial on November the 20th. Rittenhouse was found not guilty. He had a legal right to defend himself. It looks like everything is burning down around the deep state right now. So are they going to pull something huge? Are they going to play something huge? That's the question. Well, interesting. A year has gone by. Actually, it's been 2 years. The last year with Trump, and then this year with Biden.
Remember when no one thought that 1 year from the election, the Dow would be up 28.5%.
You've got very strong growth, a terrific employment market.
We have no inflation. Virtually no inflation.
Wages climbed 2.7%. The unemployment rate matched the 50-year low.
Oil prices dropping today, tumbling more than 3%.
President Trump's policies, tax cuts, deregulation, opening energy.
Whether you're a blue-collar or white-collar worker, he's taking care of all collars.
He is rebuilding this economy
in ways experts say was never possible.
The Biden administration faces another crisis amid a growing
It is not a pretty picture here at the pump. The price of gas increasing more than 6% over
You're paying more for everything.
Oh, yeah, amen. Sorry about that, folks. That was a trashy clip. That wasn't your radio, and it wasn't it was on this end. It was just a trashy clip. But you get the idea. I mean, here we are living in the land of plenty, and then and like I said, we get back to Jeremiah, folks. This is the judgment of God that has fallen upon us because we have put too much faith in man and not enough faith in God. We've got people all across our nation and even over there in Europe, around the globe, are having issues right now. We're seeing the separating of the tare from the wheat. We've got people now finding themselves in divorce. We've got people now finding themselves addicted to opioids. We're finding people with no hope that are killing themselves. We're finding people that are trusting in this vaccine and in man, and are probably, we have no idea what this is going to do to our bodies as we further go on down the line. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, we have got a lot of trials and tribulations, and we're trying to look to man. We're trying to look to an election. Oh, in 2022, we're going to get it right. No, we're not, man. If we don't fix 2020, which, let me give you a little insight on that. In Wisconsin, they have found so much. Now they have got state representatives up there now wanting to have the electors withdraw their electoral votes from Biden, and they're pushing it. As of right now, they have found something like, 400 votes that came from just one address. I mean, just stupid stuff like that, just like they were finding in Arizona. And so Wisconsin is hoping that their electors will pull the electoral votes that they have for Biden and set a standard, set a precedent, so that the old adage, if one man stands up, then you'll start having more stand up with him. If Wisconsin does it, then Arizona will do it, and then Michigan will do it. And I'm not trying to hang my hopes on some kind of election victory here. But what I am saying is there is something in motion. And we need to quit relying on man. We need to start trusting in God, because people's lives, Christ said he didn't come to bring peace. He came to bring a sword of division. And this division that we are seeing now, folks, is the return that he's bringing. We need to be receptive to it. Sheriff Clay Higgins from down in Louisiana, down there outside of New Orleans. Oh, I love it down there in Louisiana, man. When I run down there on Interstate 10, down there in not Bayou La Battery, that's Alabama. Down there in Bow Bridge, Alabama, right outside of Baton Rouge, there's a truck stop called the Tiger Truck Stop down there. I guess it's closer to Baton Rouge. I think it's the 140 mile. Anyway, the best mud bug etouffee that you could ever eat. I mean, the best. And if you come up here into West Nashville, there is a place called the Voodoo Gumbo. And, I mean, they're not paying me to say this. I'm just saying, if you like Cajun food like I do, the guy that owns it is Cajun. He's pure Cajun. And the mud bug etouffee that he serves right here down the road tastes exactly like the one down there outside of Bow Bridge, Louisiana. So, get you some, man. It's good. Mud bug etouffee. If you've never had it, you're missing out. Clay Higgins, the sheriff down there in Louisiana. Listen to what he had to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, the oppressor's intent is for you to comply with their mandates and commands. And they don't expect for you to comply with their commands until the end of COVID. They expect you to comply with their commands until the end of time. Let me be very clear to all you oppressors. You've drawn a line in the sand. Be prepared to defend your position, because some of us are free Americans and we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. If you want to get a vaccine, get it. If you don't, don't. That's called freedom. Freedom is what's at stake. And some of us are prepared to carry that fight with every drop of our blood. On January the 3rd, 2023, Republicans will be sworn into the majority in this House behind us here. The hallowed halls of Congress shall once again be under the control of Republican conservatives. On that day, myself and many of my colleagues will introduce legislation to reinstate my military brothers and sisters with full pay back into your rank. So stay hard, stay strong, stay in shape. We're going to get you back in your slot. And to my business brothers and sisters out there, do not comply. Use Article 3. Put your attorneys to work. Stand your ground. You have about a year to make it and survive. You can do it, but stand for freedom, and you'll find yourself in the company of patriots from sea to shining sea. Thank you, my good friend, for arranging this conference today.
Amen. Sheriff Clay Higgins, man, you can't beat him. He's old school, man. He's hardcore. But anyway, good stuff down in Louisiana. Folks, last verse, Jeremiah 17, verse 27. But if ye will not hearken unto me to the hallowed Sabbath day, and not to bear a burden, even entering into the gates of Jerusalem on the Sabbath day, then I will kindle a fire in the gates thereof, and it shall devour the palaces of Jerusalem, and it shall not be quenched. Folks, I can read better than that, but I'm using eSword here, and it's got all of the Hebrew out beside it, and I'm having to bounce every other word to get to English. Let me try this again. But if ye will not hearken unto me to hallow the Sabbath day, and not to bear a burden, even entering in at the gates of Jerusalem on the Sabbath day, then I will kindle a fire in the gates thereof, and it shall devour the palaces of Jerusalem, and it shall not be quenched. So in closing, folks, Jeremiah opened this day stating that God wanted him to write all of this with a pen of iron, and the point of it to be a diamond, to etch it in stone, to basically say, everything that I'm telling you is not going to be wiped away. Erosion is not going to desecrate it. Mark Zuckerberg ain't going to be able to delete it. And that bearded fellow, whatever his name is on Twitter, he's not going to be able to delete it. YouTube's not going to be able to censor it. What I say is going to be etched in stone. And it's now been delivered to you, folks. So what you need to do is you need to take this with you as you go. You need to put it to heart and understand we do have some good things that appear to be happening. But we've also got warning now. They might be dropping the smallpox on us, folks. Do not trust in man. Don't even trust me, the Bible says. Don't trust in man. Trust in the Lord. Go to the Lord. We're just a watchman here. We're just telling you what's going on. So I greatly appreciate all of y'all being with us tonight. The 2 hours went by pretty fast. But it's good, and I'm hungry. I've got a little bit of sandwich left. And hey, I should have got some mudbug etouffee, but anyway. Friends, I enjoyed it. The Lord willing and the creeks don't rise. I'll catch you next weekend. And until then, bye-bye.
Smokehouse. To talk with Smokehouse, dial 712-770-3857. That number once again is 712-770-3857. Then dial the access code 252380, followed by the pound sign, and you will be placed in the queue. Call in and join the show.
SmokehouseStudios.net. God is among us. The door to the ark is slamming shut.